Hi! Today we are going to talk about how to draw velvet. It's not very difficult, and I use Procreate, which makes it even easier. The nature of velvet is it's pretty heavy. It has a lot of highlights and a lot of shadows. So no matter what color, you'll need a lot of black in it. It's a little grainy texture, and it's really dense in coloration and saturation of color, right? So to begin with, I have made an outline like I always do, and I add a new layer on top. Then I use my selector tool on automatic and I select the areas that I want colored, and I drop my color down. So this will just quickly explain what I did. So I have my base color, and that's the lightest color I'm gonna use. And now I use my medium color to do basic shading around her shape, underneath the breast, and where the folds are gonna be. And now I take my darkest red and I actually just cover the same areas I did before, but I don't use the same large brush size. I go a little smaller, and then I add more folds and I go in the middle of the folds, like so. Like that, and there. I'm gonna emphasize about the breast, and here we go. So I'm just gonna quickly show you what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna finish the skirt here. So how I make folds look three-dimensional is like this. So now I'm just gonna color fill a layer, and I use the mid-tone. And now I take my dark layer, and I'm just quickly gonna fill it up like this. So I smudge the outside of that and keep the inside line crisp, like this. So just one of the sides, right? And then I blend it out so the value of the dark color will look more like the mid-tone. Now I take a highlight and I do a crisp line right next to the other crisp line. And I do exactly the same thing. I take the outer line and I smudge it out, but I keep the inner line crisp, like so. The darker the shadow is, the deeper the fold will look, right? I'm just gonna fix it up, and then I'm just gonna add a little bit of that shadow color, my dark tone, and I'm gonna add it on the other side of the highlight like this, and I'm gonna smudge it because that will give you an illusion of something that sticks out. And that's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be a little repetitive, I grant you that, but it's well worth the practice, and it will help you in all fabrics, especially if you have very shiny fabrics like silks and velvet, as we're working in today. I think velvet, one of the issues is that you have to be good at blending. You don't have the tough lines, the harsh contrasts. You have softer contrasts, but you have a lot of them. So with silk, you can have really sharp contrasts, but in velvet, it's really very gradual, so you need to think about that to make it look natural. And I keep using all my different tones, and I'm using black for some of the really harsh ones. So I have a light highlight, I have a medium base color, and then I have my dark red and my black. Those are the four colors I use. And then I keep smudging. And you can always use your color pick tool if you want to do something else. And here I'm using a black, like that. I'm gonna make a little fold here. I'm gonna smudge it out and drag it. Using Procreate doing this is so nice compared to doing it in ink, but you can do this in ink. It's exactly the same concept in ink. How I smudge with ink is I take the dark color and put it on a plastic surface, and then I dip the light color marker in it and, you know, just slowly smudge it out like that. I'm gonna make a fold over the breast, because otherwise the breast looks almost like it's a swimsuit. And now we're just repeating ourselves. We keep doing folds. But once you get good at it, I promise you all fabric will be so much easier to make like this. That's gonna be a deep one. And I zoom in a lot while I do it. That's because I'm close to being blind. You actually get the best result if you cannot zoom in so much. So that would be my recommendation in using Procreate. But I mean, if you're like me, it gets very pixelated when you zoom in a lot, I find. So if you can avoid it, do it. And as you see, not all my folds are really deep. I drag some of the shade out into the highlight. I drag some of the highlights into the shade. And I do that because we don't have the hash line, and blending is super important doing velvet. So another really important thing now, if you look at the bottom, and I grant you it's not perfectly drawn because it's an 8-minute tutorial, but there's a lot of folds. So velvet will not have a few big, heavy, deep folds. It'll have a lot of deep folds because it's a thin but heavy fabric, and it does not stand on its own. It kind of sags a little bit. So this is what velvet folds would look like. I use a lot of shadow, and down here I basically use black most of the time. But what's really important is that you remember to highlight the folds that appears to come out, right? Because otherwise you will you won't get the same effect. So you see here, this one will come out a little bit. I'm just gonna highlight it. I'm gonna make another little highlight here, like so. And now I'm just gonna fine tune everything. Good, so now you duplicate the dress layer. You have both of them on. You go into sketching and you choose the Bonoco chalk. And now I'm color picking the medium color, and I'm adding it randomly following the fold lines. That will give you texture. I don't know if you really can see it as much. And I'm gonna choose a darker one, and I'm gonna add it there on the sleeves. You see, there it is. You can do it as much as you want, as little as you want, but this is your velvet for you. Have a good day.